I was like a little bit lost, trying to find myself and, not really knowing what to believe in, but wanting to believe in something. And so that was like, okay, this is crazy. Like, this is nuts. I'm not alone. And I very much felt like, okay, I've got guides, I guess, spirit. I never even heard of spirit guides. And so it just became this journey of, following breadcrumbs.
Welcome to the Spirits Beside Us podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lippincott. I'm an ex-Wall Street analyst turned international medium, spiritual teacher, and best-selling author. Each week we'll dive into the fascinating and uplifting arena of the non-physical world to help you deepen your understanding and spiritual connection to the unseen realm. We'll also share a behind-the-scenes look with others who've done the same and speak with experts in the field about their experiences. Pull up a seat and let's dive into these perspective-changing conversations. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to another episode of Spirits Beside Us. I'm so glad to have you join us again. My name's Chris Lippincott. I'm your host, and today I'm with our special guest, Alexa Darrin. She is a special spiritual coach and definitely a psychic medium. She's been helping a lot of ambitious and multi-passionate women really find their clarity and ultimately their life purpose, and using their inner guidance so they can really create not only better lives, but also help them work with soul-aligned businesses. So with that, I just want to invite Alexa and welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, great. So one of the things that is really fascinating that I find is that before you became this wonderful spiritual coach, you used to be a professional creative, I think, for an ad agency, if I remember right, for almost like a decade or something like that. So you didn't start out this way. You came from a very different background. How did you go from being, a creative for a good decade, and now you're being a spiritual coach? What happened? How did you get there?
Yeah, great question. It's been a winding path. I lived a good 40 years as a muggle, I like to say.
Yes.
No. I was like a high school teacher. I was a documentary director, writer, ad agency, all of that. And what's really interesting, I feel like there's a lot of commonalities between creatives and intuitives because you're really using your imagination, when you're connecting with spirit and channeling, and I think that I was doing that to some extent, as a teacher and as a creative, which is really interesting to think about. But I wasn't really, interested in spirituality, in new age, type spirituality. My mom was, and I always just thought that was sort of her thing, and it didn't really resonate until I sort of had this, Reiki. It was sold to me as Reiki over the phone. I didn't even know what that was. It was, someone that apparently, had connected to my grandfather who passed before I was born. And in that session, it was, very clear to me that she was connecting with like my soul, and brought in my grandfather and spirits in my house and my friend who had passed. And that sort of changed my perspective on everything. Wow. And I remember I was like crying for like 2 hours after that. It was so emotional, and it was so life-changing that I just looked around and realized that the world was way different. The universe, I should say, than what I had imagined. And I always had felt like I didn't fit in, or like I was like a little bit lost, trying to find myself and, not really knowing what to believe in, but wanting to believe in something. And so that was like, okay, this is crazy. Like, this is nuts. I'm not alone. And I very much felt like, okay, I've got guides, I guess, spirit. I never even heard of spirit guides. And so it just became this journey of, following breadcrumbs. Mm-hmm. Just learning more. I started Googling Reiki, and I was like, whatever that was not Reiki.
Yeah, I know that
I was
one.
like, so she's a psychic, and so then she started. I worked with her for like I think over a year. I saw her
Wow.
for some spiritual healing. She started working with angels, and so that's what got me curious
Mm.
about angels.
Oh, wow.
And
Interesting. Okay.
first it was crystals, and then angels, and into the Akashic records. And like you do when you get into spirituality, one thing leads to the next. You
Yeah,
fall down a
exactly.
lot of
Wow.
rabbit holes.
I
And
was just gonna say, you really went kind of head first into the whole stuff. You're like not really expecting much, and all of a sudden she brings through all these people, and you're like, oh my gosh, my entire perspective on existence has done a 180. Where am I now?
yeah, and it was somewhat gradual. I wasn't diving into everything all at once.
Right.
It took a few years to sort of get to I'm a psychic medium,
Yeah. Right.
sort of
Exactly.
thing.
But it was a
Which
presentation that you're like, whoa, where'd this come
yeah,
from? Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore.
yeah, yeah. It was wild. It was wild. It's
That's amazing. So it sounds like you had this inkling that something was different before you ever had that experience. You kind of like, well, I don't really feel like I fit in. So there's something that's not really aligned here, but I don't know what it is. So there's just a giant question mark, and all of a sudden this seems to kind of fill that unknown, I guess. That kind of
mhm.
the way it started to evolve.
Yeah, and I've always been a really open, curious person. So like if a new idea is presented to me, like I definitely get curious about it. I think that because my mom was into some of that stuff and we didn't always get along when I was younger, it was kind of like, okay, that's her
Mm.
woo woo stuff, but I think once I had, once you start to have your own experience with something, I think
Sure.
that shifts it too. And so, yeah, I think, and I knew I'd had experience some psychic experiences as a kid, that I was sort of starting to remember. And,
Yeah.
a lot of crazy dreams that I had, so dots started connecting as well.
Okay. Yeah, because I always know that people have had some kind of experience that when they were younger they couldn't explain or understand, or they had something, and then they have a really unusual experience. For example, like when you were going to this woman who was giving you Reiki, all of a sudden it started to come together, and you're like, oh, now I know what that thing was when I was really young.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was happening? I mean, you were talking about you were having psychic experiences or unusual experiences when you were a kid. What wonderful things were happening then?
Well, I don't remember everything, and it wasn't a whole lot. My aunt and I would play a game where I would like be able to guess the numbers she was thinking of, and like I would be able to read her mind once, and or a little bit, and she shut it down. I freaked her out because we play a game where she would like, oh, I'm to think of a letter in the alphabet. I was like 4, I think. I was very, very young, and she's like, I'm gonna write a letter on a chalkboard. I want you to tell me what the letter is. And she wrote an R, and then she erased it and wrote a P. And so I told her that, and she just freaked out, never played the
Wow.
game with me again. And she told me the story way like years later. So there was, I think there was more that was going on. I don't remember. We'd play these little games where I could, read people's minds. I
That's
guess.
amazing.
I don't know.
Exactly. Wow.
I would have been freaked out too if I
I
was
was going
her.
to say, you're like,
I'm
whoa,
like,
wait a second. This
we're not
person's reading
playing
my.
this game anymore.
Exactly. Exactly. It's kind of like, whoa, wait a second. You can read my mind. This is a little unusual. Go away.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is great. So if I remember right, you were saying the first experience with this woman with Reiki was kind of opening you up to angels. Was that right? Was that how it started to work? What was happening with
No,
that?
she didn't start working with angels until, I mean, maybe 3, 6 months later. It was, yeah, I mean, it was a few months later. She was
Oh,
working
okay.
with angels, and it was sort of, she was doing like angelic light healing,
Ah,
basically.
okay.
So we did a lot of inner healing, balancing my chakras. I was going through a lot of stuff. And
Mm.
so she would bring in messages from my guides, and do a lot of energetic
Oh,
healing.
great. Oh, I see. So that was after your grandparents came through and everybody else was
Yeah, it
going
was like a
through.
few months later, I think.
Okay, great.
And so
So
then
that's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, and so then I just started to get curious about angels because I hadn't ever really thought about, angels. I remember my mom talking about them. So then I started learning about the archangels and what they
Ah,
were and
okay.
all of that.
So what was your experience with energy healing? Because obviously that's really what Reiki is, and working with angelic healing. So perhaps you can explain for listeners that might not be fully aware of it. What was your experience with energy healing, and how was it working for you?
I think for me, what it did, it was peeling back the layers that were like clouding sort of who I was and my judgment and my intuitive gifts. I think it
Mm,
was a lot of what was going on. And so I think that's what was starting to then uncover my intuition and my own connection. And I wasn't that wasn't my intent. I didn't really even know why I was seeing her again. I just felt like I needed to, but I wasn't. It wasn't like this is my goal. So it was just something would come up every single time we would do past life healing. She would be able to connect with past lives. And I found that really fascinating because she could see them in detail, and I would learn about that and kind of who I had been in past lives and what my guides were like. And then we did the inner child healing. And so I was sort of, just kept seeing her because I just felt like I needed to. And so and also because I had not wanted to have children, decided that I wasn't gonna just gonna have do my own thing and be independent and travel and work and all of that. And then our first session together, she saw me with the baby, and I'm like, oh, is that like a niece or nephew or something, and she's like, no, this is yours. So there was some things that sort of kind of uncovered in that way. And then I was like driving one day and I just started crying. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to have a little girl and like she's going to change my life. I was just like,
wow.
what? And I just knew I was going to have this girl and it just shook my world. So I think I was, seeing her for that support again of like peeling back the layers and trying to prepare
Mm,
myself for motherhood as well, like healing, things in myself. And so I think that energy healing, it can be easily misunderstood as something that's subtle or that's not necessary or that it's a luxury. But I think that everything starts with your energy. And I think it's really easy to dismiss, but what I have come to learn is that energy is everything.
yeah.
And it's something that all the clients, that I work in it's a foundational part of like my spiritual coaching program is energy hygiene and energy sovereignty, right? Because it all starts there. And so that I think was opening up my eyes to the stuff that we would do. I would just be on the phone with her and she'd be talking and doing her thing, but I would feel amazing after, or things were starting to shift in the way that I saw the world and the way that I tapped into my higher knowing, that it was like, okay, I'm becoming a different person, you know,
Yeah.
or becoming the person who I should be,
Exactly. That's probably a
I
better way of
guess,
saying it.
yeah. Yeah. The person who I was meant to be or whatever. So,
Fulfilling your
uh,
purpose.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's I mean, you're touching on something that's so fundamental. I mean, even quantum physics is proven that everything in existence is energy, and it's just a question of what the vibration of that energy happens to be. So you're talking about energy hygiene. So energy hygiene sounds, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're talking about clearing any energy that no longer serves you, clearing your chakras, raising your vibration, and really focusing on the energy that you want to manifest, so you can manifest that life that you really feel is something that you're aligned with and ultimately is your purpose. Is that kind of the way you're looking at it?
Yeah. And boundaries as well.
Boundaries, yeah.
Energetic boundaries as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow, great. Yeah, because you were talking about energy hygiene, and it just seems that um, as we live in this modern world, everybody seems to kind of be going at 1,000 miles an hour, and nobody really has time to step out of their own way, and they just get cluttered on the inside, and they
Oh my
get so
gosh.
so dirty.
So cluttered. Yeah, I know. And it's so silly too because it doesn't take that much time and I feel like sometimes I like want to shake my clients. I'm like, "Do your energetic hygiene. Can please
Yeah,
follow
exactly.
the protocol." I feel like a school marm with my clipboard. I'm like,
Start
"Did you
taping
do
your
the 4
fingers.
steps?" Yeah. Yeah. And then when they get consistent, they're like, "Oh, wow. Okay. Now I get it." I'm like, you have
Yeah.
to, you have to have that experience for yourself. So yeah, I think having a morning and an evening routine for your energy is essential.
Yeah. So what do you tell clients should be their morning and evening routine to keep their energy hygiene up to snuff?
Well, so I give them a simple 4-step process. So basically, you've got to cut the cords and clear out everything from your energy, right? So you can do that a number of ways. You can visualize, all the cord energetic cords, between you and other people and places and things and kind of falling away. You can call in Archangel Michael to cut those cords. You can ask the universe to cut those cords, but releasing all of that. And then the next step, I think, is also clearing out. I call in Archangel Metatron. I love working with angels. And so I call in him to clear out any lower vibrations and blockages, stagnancies, negative energies, all that stuff, right? To get that out and then to call all my energy back to me. And then and then put up the boundary, which again, I use Archangel Michael. A lot of people have heard about the bubble for my empaths out there, right? You say, put yourself in a bubble. I like calling in Archangel Michael for that protection, because when you put yourself in a bubble, that's your energy holding up the bubble all day. But if you call in an angel, then they put up the bubble, and that's their energy and not yours. And so I like Archangel Michael for that
Ooh,
protection.
I like
So
that.
yeah, that's sort of the simple one that I give my clients. I think also you should clean out your chakras, and I do a meditation to kind of bring in a lot of love energy every morning. I love Christy Marie Sheldon for that. The Who did
Mm,
Lover Above.
yeah.
So yeah, there's different like supplements, but I think cutting the cords to things, because you pick up all those cords throughout the day, and then
Yep.
and then protecting yourself, putting up that boundary, are the two most essential things to do.
That's great. Yeah. So definitely cleansing your chakras, even if it's just like a visualization of standing under a waterfall or something, or whatever you want to do, whatever kind of visualization, get that and then get that protection and boundaries, even from the help of whatever you feel that you align with, whether it's angels or
Yeah.
source, or I mean, I guess it's going to be individual. It's to each person, right?
Yeah. And so that's why, for each of my clients, first question I ask is, what do you call your higher power?
Yeah.
Do you want to work with angels? Is it universe, goddess, all that? It's like, cool. Here's some options. This is what you can do, because to me, it's, it doesn't matter. It's whatever you resonate with.
Yeah, it's all, and basically it's all coming from the same energy, the same direction anyway. It's whether you're calling it, God or source or angels or universe, or it's all the same, fundamental supplement, if you will.
Yeah. It just depends on what energy you like to work with, what feels good to you.
Yeah. So that kind of ties back to the time when you were learning about the angels with your Reiki healer. Is that when you started to open up to the angels and you're like, wow, this angel stuff is really pretty cool. I want to learn more about it.
Yeah, and I feel like things just sort of would pop into my awareness, or I would, I got into oracle cards with Colette Baron Reed, and she had Kyle Gray on her podcast, who,
Mm,
an angel expert. And so then I would, oh, who's this guy? And I would, kind of learn more about him and his work. And so one thing would lead to another. So it's when I studied with Kyle Gray and Radley Valentine, for angels, got certified as a angel card reader, and connecting to angels and all of that. I was just exploring in that way, where yeah, one thing would definitely lead to another. And so I think Kyle Gray is who I learned about the archangels from first, and then Radley Valentine, but then also got to have my own experience as well.
oh, what kind of experiences were you having with the angels?
I mean, just connecting with them. Like,
Oh,
so
okay.
I connect with my clients' guardian angels for messages. Like if I'm doing just like a one-off, life path session, I connect with their guardian angel and their guides. And
Hmm.
sometimes archangels will come in as well that want to connect with them. And then I'd like to just connect with archangels for guidance and support.
Okay.
Call them in as necessary and daily.
Yeah, exactly. Hang out and have a cup of coffee with them, see what happens.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So a lot of people have the question, what's the difference between an angel and a spirit guide? What's your thought on that?
So angels have never incarnated. And so they're just beings of light. And angels, they're referred to as the heartbeat of God, the universe. And so they are God, but it's like it's a don't want to say embodied because they don't have a body, but a form that we can interact with as humans, right? That we can, because sometimes God and the universe feels so big that angels are a way that we can connect with the divine in a more personal way. And your guardian angel is someone that, you've been together since the very beginning, all your lifetime. So your guardian angel knows you better than you know yourself, better than anyone. Guardian angels also don't have egos, and they don't judge, and they're here to radiate pure love and support for you. Whereas spirit guides can be someone that has incarnated. So that could be your grandma, your grandpa, or someone that you were best buddies with in a past life. Or, it could be something like that. It could be someone who has decided not to incarnate anymore. It could be someone who might then, be a spirit guide for a while and then go back to incarnating. And yeah, I feel like that's the main difference. And they're vibrating at a different vibration.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And yeah, the thing I've always heard is that angels are God's messengers, whereas spirit guides are sort of the people who are kind of teaching us subtly what directions we might need to go to improve
Yeah.
ourselves or to live out the soul contract we had that when we signed up when we were incarnating.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I'm like, wait a second, I signed up for this life. What was I thinking?
Yeah.
Why did
I
I
was
sign that
way
contract?
I was way too ambitious.
Yeah,
Way too
exactly.
ambitious.
And I think that's why spirit guides come in because they're saying, listen, you signed up for a very ambitious contract, so we're going to make sure that you follow that trail. We're going to keep you honest.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Whereas that feeling of the angels is that feeling of to your point, not only do they not have any ego, but as messengers of God or the universe, they are just pure love, radiating that unconditional love, that divine love that just lights you up inside beyond what a spirit guide can do. I mean, spirit guides do that anyway, but wow, when you connect to an angel with that kind of love, it's as if you're connecting to source. It's that much
Oh,
more powerful.
it's next level. Yeah, it's unlike anything else for sure. The love of an angel, so it feels a lot different than a guide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had a colleague who does a lot of angel work and angel communication, and I don't really do a lot of angel communication at all. I really haven't gone that direction, nor have perhaps it's my materialist background. I don't know, but she's. I asked her, what was the difference? Because sometimes I'll feel this incredible energy that's so much different, but I questioned it. It was that questioning doubt that always was in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh, this can't be an angel, is it? So what do you do with that doubt when you have that incredible, powerful experience, but you're like, well, maybe that's a spirit guide, but question mark.
What do you do with that doubt?
Yeah, I mean, so let's say you're having an incredible, powerful experience, and it's different than a spirit guide. Let's say you're used to connecting with your spirit guide, but then all of a
Hmm.
sudden you have another experience, and you're just like it's taking your breath away, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This must be just a higher level spirit guide, and then all of a sudden you're like, could that be an angel? What is it that would tell you it's an angel? How do you start to identify that?
Well, if you think it's an angel, it probably is.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a pretty clear
Yeah.
cut answer.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? Is that the doubt comes in when we start to question that first impression. And so
Mhm.
I think the rule with angels is if you think it's a specific angel, if you think it's Archangel Michael, it's probably Archangel Michael. If you think it's your guardian angel, it is.
So it goes right back to that phrase that I've always learned from years ago and years of doing mediumship is trust and surrender. So I guess you have to apply,
Absolutely.
you got to apply that to angels as well, which is one thing I've have had trouble doing, but I've got to apply that there too. So trust and surrender. Okay, so that's something that I got to do. Note to self. Um, I'll move
You
on
could
for
you could also go ask your angels for a sign too. Like, right,
true.
if you feel like you'd like a little bit of validation.
Yeah.
And I think it's always best to approach that with the gratitude first, right? And not be
Right.
like, I'm not going to believe you unless you send me a sign.
Uh-huh.
I think being really grateful for them reminding you of their presence and being around you,
Mm.
and thank you so much for connecting. I would love to see a sign of if this is you. Can you give me, can I see a bunch of twos? Can I see a bluebird? Whatever it might be. Ask for a
Yeah.
sign.
Well, one thing that's always been happening to me is I've been seeing angel numbers all over the place. Like just this morning, it was 1 1 1 1. I mean, repeating four ones or repeating 12 12, like 11 11 or 12 12. I'm seeing that all the freaking time. Just saw it this morning when I was thinking about something I'm getting really excited about manifesting. I turned to my clock, and sure enough, pow, it smacked me in the head. There's 11 11. I'm like, that's a sign. I'm seeing it all the time.
The angels knew that we were about to meet.
Yeah, they did. They did. They're like, well, we're gonna talk, and let me just bash you over the head and give you a little bit of proof here.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. And then it also, I mean, it kind of combining angels and spirit guides and energy. It all goes to manifestation. It's you bring that into trying to take your energy and your love and your gratitude and your connection and your heart, and that can kind of help you to manifest, to take that forward. Is that something that you've also helped your clients with? Let's say they've got a dream in their life, or they want to take their lives in a new direction, they want to manifest that life. Is that something that you've been working with your clients with?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just held a workshop at a local crystal shop called Practical Magic with the Angels, how to
Ooh.
invoke the archangels for love, abundance, and parking spots. So,
I love it.
yeah, I always get rock star parking. So that was the inspiration for that. I've got my
Nice.
parking angel. But I think what's cool about the archangels is when you start to be able to connect with each archangel that's got their specific sort of domain, right? Their expertise. And so if you're wanting to bring in more love, it's Archangel Shamuel, right? If you want to bring harmony to like a relationship situation, then that's Archangel Raguel. If you want more protection, Archangel Michael, obviously. If you've got health issues or want better health, or you're traveling, Archangel Raphael, right? So you can think about the different things in your life that maybe you could bring in an archangel, but you could also combine them, right? So then if you can think about, okay, what archangel squad do I want to assemble for this particular challenge or thing I want to manifest. And I think if you're manifesting, you should always call in Archangel Ariel. She is definitely the queen for manifestation.
Ooh.
She's really much connected to nature and our physical reality, right? So if we're trying to bring
Oh.
something into the physical, and she's really also associated with like peaceful courage, right? She's like this peaceful warrior. And I think so it's not just manifestation. So I think she's got a very like playful, uplifting, like vibe as well, so to speak. And so I think when you're manifesting, you want to really stay like, playful about it and not
Yeah.
attached. So you can kind of pair her if you're trying to manifest love, then maybe bring in Archangel Ariel and Archangel Shamuel to help bring in to
Ooh.
manifest that soulmate. So I think it can be a really fun way to supercharge your manifestation and also at the same time your connection with angels.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. Maybe that was why I'm seeing all these angel numbers. They're kind of trying to get me to talk to them a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It could
Yeah.
very well be. And all this time I've been kind of been sitting there like an adult going, what are all these angel
Yeah.
numbers mean? Oh, great. So you also you were talking about kind of your past lives, and you've been working with your clients about Akashic records. So what is it about Akashic records and past lives that can really help people? And I guess that's part of the clearing out the old energy. But how do Akashic record insights help us?
So the type of Akashic record reading that I do is a little bit different. I mean, I think I'm not sure. I do. It's kind of like a soul personality profile. Essentially, I call
Mm.
it a soul profile, and it's like a written report that I give my clients. It's like 25 pages. So I go into when I'm doing this, I go in for very specific things, the way that I was trained by my teacher. And so the things that I'm looking for really help you to understand who you are on the soul level, the lessons you're learning in this life, and your intuitive gifts. And so that I think is really empowering for my clients because it just validates so many things that have sort of popped up for them, or it connects a lot of dots. It just explains things and who they are and why they are that way. And so I think that is really empowering to know, because that's where true confidence comes from. If you know who you are and what you came here to do, you're not going to care about people criticizing you, because you're like, well, like, I'm good. I know this is who I am. But if you don't have that soul level confidence and understanding of who you are, and you're like, oh, why do I like this thing? Or why am I trying to do this thing? Maybe I'm not good enough for this, or not worthy, or this is not aligned. So I think that can be really empowering. I think the past life, learning about your past lives, I think is just kind of like frosting on the cake sometimes. I think it's fascinating, but I think that those specific experiences are not really the focus of the value I think that there is for, like, at least the clients that I work with in, like, my, soul purpose coaching and some of that stuff. And I think, yes, for past lives, we'll look at and see if there are any blocks or past life vows, or, kind of fears that are connected to that. I think there's a lot of value in clearing that stuff out. And I also think that sometimes there'll be a past life that's particularly relevant where you had a great life, and it would be really valuable to connect with that life in this life.
Oh, wow.
One example, which is one of my favorite examples of where it's come up, is that one client of mine, I was connecting, before the session, and her guides were showing me and I don't think I was even in the records, but her guides were showing me a past life where she was like, I felt like Kauai, and there was all this chanting, like heavy, like beautiful, like, rich tones, like chanting. And she was like in her power, like this medicine woman who was like respected. And it was like this really magical setting. And so I'm seeing this, and I wasn't really sure exactly, why they were showing me this. And it was coming up that she needed to, like, raise her rates with her clients, and, all this. So we go into the session. I'm telling her, oh, chanting, like, have you, if you listen to chanting, that might help you connect with this past life, and that power that you had, like, listen to that music. And her jaw drops, and she goes, I listen to chanting all the time. Like, I go on YouTube and I listen to Hawaiian chanting, and sometimes I just cry.
Oh my God.
And I was like, okay, now you know why.
Oh,
and
wow.
and so it's like she was already drawn to it, didn't know why, had that emotion. And so now it's like, okay, now you can listen to that and intentionally tap into that power that you had in that life to feel empowered to raise your rates. And then she's like, and I was like, your guide said you need to raise your prices. She's like, yeah, I haven't raised them in like 20 years. It's like, okay, well, you need to listen to the chanting again. Like, feel like the strong. And
any time, like, you feel like you need to raise your prices, just go listen to your chanting and you'll be cool.
Yeah. So that was for me, that was a great lesson for me in the value of past lives that are, like, empowering in that way, that we can sort of bring that memory into this life and connect with that for her through music, to bring that in.
So is it, whenever we get so let's say we're listening to music all of a sudden, and all of a sudden we feel this inexplicable emotion because we're drawn to it, and we're like, why am I feeling this incredible emotion all of a sudden because of this one piece? Sure, it may be really nice, but oh my gosh, I'm just like, and something hits you, and you're just like, this is different. Why?
Yeah.
Could that be because we're tapping into, like your client did, you're tapping into something that might have been in a past life experience?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Or if you're drawn to, like, maybe you're really drawn to Egypt and you don't know why, and you're obsessed with, ancient Egyptian culture, you probably had some great lives there, or at least one, things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. For me, I've always loved France, and I studied French when I was in junior high school, college. I minored in it. I've been there a bunch of times. And so then when so then when I was learning about this, I wanted to like, oh my gosh, have I had any past lives in France? And my guides were like laughing. Like every time you plan a life, you're like, should I go to France? Like half of my lives have been in France. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And I've like almost moved there a couple of times. It's like, I'm not supposed to be there this life, but that's, that was that pull. And so for me, it explained, explained so
Wow,
much,
that's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
it actually makes a lot of sense because I've had people give me past life explanations, and a lot of them have very consistently been talking about how I had past lives in Britain, uh, going way back, um, and I've always sort of been an Anglophile, and shockingly, I was born in England. I'm still kind of an Anglophile, so I'm like, there are probably a lot of dots here. That I'm like, yeah, maybe I was and still am.
Yeah.
Maybe I should be. Don't know. There's definitely a theme going on here.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of fun. I think it's yeah, there's like, it's kind of fun. Me knowing about France doesn't like enrich my life anyway, that I got all those, those past lives. But I think it's just, it's another way to get to know yourself and to
Hmm.
validate the things, your interests.
Yeah.
And I think, again, it can all fuel that confidence, to do what you came here to do, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Because I think way too many people are doubting themselves and their interests and their passions and the things that they want to build. That all this conditioning happens in childhood and past lives, and I see with so many clients that they let that get in the way. But once you can tap into your soul level power and yeah, the truth of who you are and what you came here to do, like everything just opens
Mm.
up.
Yeah, that sounds so perfect. It's like you suddenly find your purpose and you feel so energized. It gives you the confidence to move forward. Like, yes, this is the direction I should be moving. Now I'm confident because I've been given my purpose, and yeah, it's been there forever. It's been not only the Akashic records, but maybe I signed that soul contract, and that's my purpose, and I feel aligned. And here I go, world, watch out.
Yeah. And I think learning about your life lessons too is really interesting, because we all have like a primary life lesson, secondary one. There's more, but I just check for the first two. And knowing what your life lessons are, I think can also allow you to move through them with a little bit more
Hmm.
of a sense of humor and
Yeah.
self-awareness, and a little bit more surrender. So we joke about our life lessons all the time in my house. And it's like, okay, well, perseverance, here we go. you know um so things like that, I think once you're aware, you can see the patterns, and it doesn't feel like it's something that's just like happening to you. It's happening for a reason. And once you can then, okay, take a deep breath, a step back, and try to figure out what you're supposed to be learning from that and
Hmm.
implement that, then you can break that cycle, because you're like, okay, this is a lesson and I'm not learning it, and that's why they'll
Yeah.
keep throwing rocks at me, because I need to wake up and
Yeah,
change
exactly.
the way I'm reacting to this
Oh,
lesson.
totally. Yeah. It's like you keep on having the same experiences over and over and over again. You're wondering why they're happening. Maybe they won't be happening quite as much or as intently if you're saying, "Oh, wait a second, this is not happening to me. This is happening for me." And that might actually change the way you are experiencing these things. Is that kind of
Yeah.
the way to think?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, and I never thought of it as only being like one or two lessons. I was always thinking, oh, I got like a whole book of lessons I got to learn. Oh man, it's going to take me forever.
Yeah. I mean, maybe so, but we definitely have, the main focus.
Hmm. Hmm. And that's kind of like that part of that soul contract of what was I thinking? Oh,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
why we're doing this. Um, so when is it also talking about I think we touched on this briefly, but kind of like soul wounds, is that part of the Akashic records, or is that part of something that you're trying to heal through energy healing, or how does that all kind of tie into what we've been touching on so far?
Soul wounds. Oh, so maybe like
Child
like
wound.
past life
I'm sorry.
wounds.
I meant like child wounds. Maybe is that kind of
Mm,
part and parcel of sort of like the lessons you're learning, or how does that tie into sort of like again all the energy? Maybe it's like the inner child that you're trying to heal, or is that something that's or even your higher self that kind of needs a little bit of R and R?
I think it's all a mix, right? So inner child healing is another form of healing. So that's, another thing that I work on with my clients, from my intuitive counseling background. And I think inner child healing is
Mm,
incredibly important, and it's something that everyone can benefit from. And so getting in touch with your inner child, for healing or for connection, I think has a lot of value. And so once you can understand your childhood and the things that shaped you in that way, you can begin to take back some control that you've maybe given away,
mm,
or some things about yourself that you have allowed to go to the wayside or been suppressed or hidden or wounded. And so by kind of going back and unwinding your past and, how you were raised and family dynamics and, how that affected you, you can go back and heal those things. And that can then open up, things in your present.
mm. Interesting. So is it also ultimately, it seems like it goes right back to the concept of, focusing on your frequency. First, you got to, clear out, what we were talking about, clearing out your energy, and then kind of healing where you are, and then going forward, focusing on the energy and raising your vibration and really kind of boosting your frequency to try to achieve that. And if you're able to do it, get that angel who's got the parking spot as well. That that may also help you. Is that kind of the sort of the pattern that people should be going through?
Yeah, and I think, should is a funny word, but the
Or
way that the way that I approach things, yeah, the way that I approach things with my so I work most of my clients, we work in a 3-month program. And so it's a mix of like coaching and healing, and it's called soul purpose alchemy, right? So you sort of were
Mm,
getting at the structure of the program, right? So in
right.
the beginning, it's about, okay, we need to clear the clutter. We need to get you basic energetic hygiene. We need to cut some cords. We need to release some of the stuff, get you in this routine so we can start to, again, dust things off, right? And so then first we're starting with that, and then we dive into the inner child
Ah,
and your childhood and your understanding of soul contracts and sort of what's been happening in this life. And then we go back into past lives and see what healing needs to be done in those from past lives. What's like the main thing that's going on? Is there a block? Is there a vow? Is there wounds? And so then once we've sort of done that also can, gets you curious about diving in deeper, right? So we're not going to solve all the problems of everything in 3 months. We're going to do a lot of work, but so that can get you on that journey of then diving in deeper, because inner child, work, you could be doing that, your entire life, I think, to continue to connect with your inner child and, um, for positivity. So I think, yeah, so we kind of go to the past. And then once you've been able to heal some of that stuff, it's easier to develop your intuition when your energy is clearer and cleaner. So then I work with my clients to connect them to their higher selves and then their guides and angels. And we work on then developing your own inner knowing. And
hmm.
in tandem with the energetic hygiene and keeping your chakras clear and understanding how your chakras relate to intuition, right? So then that is also then going to boost your confidence and make you aware then of what other things are coming up that need to be healed, right? Because now you're no longer just kind of like pushing things to the side or going through the motions. Like then again, you're able to see, what else needs attention. And then we do an Akasha Gregor deep dive. We see who you are on the soul level. And now you can start to think about the future, right? Because you can't really envision your ideal future if you haven't healed your past and understand who you are on the soul level. So
Mm.
then, we can work on sort of expanding that vision.
Interesting, interesting. So what exactly is our higher self? Is that our soul? Is that our spirit? Is that the part of us that remains behind as we experience the physical? How would you describe the higher self?
Yeah, sort of a mix of all that. I think it's the part of you that's always connected to source. It's the part of you that, yes, that is, on the other side or connected to all of that while we're down here. So it's you, but it's also the highest and best version of you. It's super connected.
So
So,
it's kind of
it's just
like,
another way to think about your intuition. I think for some people it's easier to say higher self than intuition. Again, it's like what resonates with you, because then,
mm,
okay, like who is my higher self? I'll have my clients like visualize him or her and give them a name, and what do they look like, and how would your higher self act in this situation? I think that for some
Mm,
people it's easier to have that intuition embodied in that way too.
okay.
So
Yeah, because I was thinking maybe the higher self might be the mothership, and we're sort of the rover that comes down to Earth.
yeah, that's a fun analogy. Yeah.
And then if we're like, oh, wait a second, Houston, there's a problem, so we got to call back and say, hey, get me out of here.
Yeah. What have I signed up for?
Exactly. So as you've been going through your life and you've been experiencing all these wonderful things that have been going on, the connection with the angels, the connection to your higher self, your expansion, your understanding of everything. What have been some of the lessons that you've learned that you've taken away from all this? What would you say would be perhaps one of the biggest lessons you've learned in life?
Surrender.
Mm.
I I I feel like my soul must have decided this time around I I would be a psychic medium again, or do this work again, the spiritual work, so that I could really embody surrender a little bit more, and gave me a human who doesn't like to surrender. A little bit of a control freak perfectionist. So
Mhm.
I think that's been my biggest lesson. And then combined with being a new mother, right? Where I think motherhood teaches you about surrender more than anything.
Mm.
And so I think that like just learning to trust and to not get so upset when things don't go the way that you want them to be, or expecting everything to be perfect.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, I remember when I learned that like the best psychic mediums in the world are only 80% accurate. I was like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
But I want to be perfect.
I know, and then when something doesn't go right or reading doesn't go right, you're like, I'm such a failure.
Yeah, or like wanting like absolute proof, right? That trust, like just having
Yes.
to trust that what you are getting is,
Oh
is the right
gosh.
thing, and not the fear of, okay, I'm going to say this and they're going to tell me this is totally wrong. Just,
Oh
and
yeah.
especially when you get like crazy things from,
Yep.
that there's been a
Um,
lot of that where it's like, okay, I'm going to say this, and it turns out, it's some great piece of evidence. But yeah,
oh
it's
yeah.
that I think has been the biggest journey, is the trusting and releasing the need to be right all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I think those are perhaps especially for budding mediums, for example. That's some of the biggest lessons you can learn is trust and surrender, like we were just talking about, but also just give what you get, because you may get some crazy stuff. I'm always saying, okay, spirit, please give me your wild, weird, and wacky information, even though I know I'm not going to understand it. Just give it to me. And sometimes I'll get some
Yeah.
insane stuff. I'm like, okay, well, and then I give it over, and sure enough, yeah, it was.
You,
They were like, yes.
Yeah, well, you know what's interesting? I do feel like with that sort of thing, I almost prefer the weird, wacky, specific stuff than the general
Oh
stuff,
yeah. Oh yeah.
because then I'm like, well, this just is generic. Can you please give me something more specific? But then you say that generic thing and they're like, that's exactly what, they said, or that's, it's like it means something on a whole nother level I wouldn't have thought about. So
Yeah.
that almost is more tricky to trust because of
Yeah, exactly.
how
Oh,
normal it feels.
that's so true, because sometimes you'd be like, okay, well, I just got this generic thing. That's too generic. Can't you give it to me another way? And you don't get anything. You're like, all right, well, this is what they gave me. And all of a sudden, like they break into tears, because to your point, they're like, as you peel back the onion, they're like 20 things, and it actually means specifically
Yeah.
to them. They're like, oh wow, okay, I didn't realize that, but okay, here I am, thinking in my analytical mind, I should have gotten out of that one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great. I mean, talking about your mediumship, do you remember the first time you had your first spiritual connection, or your first mediumistic connection, and what was it like when you first encountered that?
Um, the first time I tried to connect, I just got like really warm. I remember it was like this rush, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but then the first time I worked with a mentor, the first two like practice readings with clients, like the clairsentience was like firing off. So like my lip was twitching and like stuff was going off, and my body was like doing all this weird stuff that was related to. And then I think the second time it was like the heart attack, where my heart was beating like so fast, and I was like, I'm not nervous. Oh, okay, this is the heart attack. So that was what was wild to me those first few times, was the physical sensations that were coming through. That I don't even know what I expected. It's just like experiment. I don't know. But that was really cool. I was really grateful for that, like right out of the gate, to feel that
Yeah.
validation to keep going.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, because I know for a lot of people, actually, since most people are so visual, they start out with their clairvoyance because spirit works with whatever they can work with first. So they'll work with their clairvoyance. A lot of people get, images, movies, etc., shared memories. They're like, oh, okay, well, I can see all this. But if you're somebody who is such an empath or such a person with emotions and feelings, that's what you'll get. It sounds like you were just like right out of the gate they were connecting with that aspect of you as opposed to anything else.
Yeah. The first two times it was like just clairsentience, and then it was everything later on, or the next session. But yeah, that first one, it was
No, that's
was
great. Yeah, and
interesting.
that's it's so amazing when spirit will keep pulling you along. And the one thing I always tell people, it's kind of like spirit. Not only is spirit our best teacher, but spirit's also like a sadistic gym trainer where they'll keep you going, 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 and then all of a sudden, okay, time to change it up, and then you'll you'll peak out and then start coming back down the other side, just like a trainer would say, okay, now you got to do a totally different exercise. I can't do that. I'm used to the other thing.
Yep. You got to just surrender again. Like, great.
Yeah. Oh, it can be so frustrating. You're like, wait a second, I just perfected this one thing, but now you're having me doing something else. I feel like such a failure. Oh my gosh, they are. It's like with Mavis Patilla. I mean, she was doing this for 50 years, and she kept on saying that they kept on adding new arrows to her, her toolbox every single time, or new tools to her toolbox, like for 50 years, and just kept on growing the whole time. Like, wow, you're doing this for 50 years and you're still learning.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
What
pretty
about everybody
amazing.
else? Oh my gosh. So, what do you think has been perhaps your biggest challenge in life? We were just talking about big lessons. What about your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge in life, I think, has been focusing like on I'm very multi-passionate. So I think my biggest challenge has been deciding what to focus my energy on. And
Interesting.
that's where I feel like that's why that was a big inspiration for my coaching program, right? Was helping multi-passionate women who felt kind of scattered. Oh, I like all these things, to focus, because I had gone through that. And I've been going through that. And it's a continuous thing, right? Um, of maintaining that focus and connection to your intuition and your guides and your knowing and all of that. And so I've definitely had a winding path, in my life, which I think was meant to be, but there's a million things I want to do and learn and try. And so for me, that's the biggest challenge in life, is to prioritize,
Wow.
because you can never do all the things that you want to do. And I think being a mom, again, has added another layer to that.
Mm.
So I have to be really strategic and thoughtful about how I spend all of my time.
Oh yeah.
And
And
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that, knowing that this is what I came here to do. And then I think, again, the Akashic record, when I was doing all of that and learning that about myself, without that, I think I wouldn't have been as confident that I was supposed to go down this path. But because
Mm.
there was all these things that had come up, and I knew that is what I was supposed to then start focusing on, that allowed me to say, okay, I'm not going to focus on this. I'm not going to focus on that. And then it's a constant also journey then with my guides too, of like, okay, I would, want to create a million different workshops and do this. I want to do that and learn about this. And it's like, okay, can you help me focus on what is the thing that is most aligned with my highest level of service? That's the best use of my time and energy to serve the people I'm supposed to serve and not get distracted with all these bright, shiny, cool things that I want to go explore.
Yeah, it's always the new shiny bright object that comes along. You're like, ooh, let me try this one. Ooh, let me try that one too. That one looks interesting. Let me go down that path. And then you're kind of like, it's like as soon as the new shiny thing is no longer shiny and it starts to dull, you go to the next shiny thing and you want to try that thing because it's more exciting.
Yeah.
Wow. So I take it that it's sort of the takeaway might be that you're trying to organize and not organize, but focus and learn what you can eliminate as far as distractions so that you're able to focus and ultimately deliver and find your purpose, or I should say um, deliver your purpose or follow your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
The other way. Okay. Interesting. So is that what motivates you in your work? Is trying to do the same thing for your clients, or what is motivating you as you kind of move forward?
Honestly, I think my biggest motivation is I want to help people. I want to inspire people to like just expand their vision of what is possible for themselves in this lifetime.
Mm,
And I think I've always been doing that in some way since I was a kid. I've always had a big imagination and been a leader and been, I think trying to inspire people around me to like go for it, And I think that I'm getting chills right now. I think that so many people hold back. And there have been so many messages coming in lately from guides and angels for my clients that are like, you need to face this fear. You need to go bigger. You're thinking too small. I mean, in more gentle words that I'm saying. But, the message is like, we need to all go bigger. And so I think that if I can help people to clear all that energetic clutter and heal themselves, understand who they are, connect with their intuition so they could go bigger, like that's the goal. It's not just like I'm trying to teach you about angels or I'm trying to, help you to develop your clairvoyance or, do this protocol. It's really that end goal of like everyone needs to step up. Everyone needs to like get over the fears and get over the feelings of unworthiness and all of that. You need to go for the thing that you came here to do. And that thing that's like inside of you that you're like, oh, I wish I could do that. Or, oh, I kind of want to do this, but I don't know how. It's like, that's the thing I want to unlock for people. And I
oh,
think it's
that's
really important.
that's huge. Yeah, it's go for that brass ring, go for that hairy, audacious goal, no matter what it is, because that's why you came here to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So, what one thing do you think that you could tell a listener that you feel that you might be able to help them with? If you were to think of one thing.
If one thing I could help them with.
Yeah, or what piece of advice, or if you were to say, okay, Mr. or Mrs. Listener, what is it that you can do to improve your life? What's like the biggest thing you could tell them, whether it's advice or an idea, or how you could help them?
To trust yourself. I think
Mm,
it's to trust yourself. I think a lot of people look for outside validation and doubt, the little tugs and those inner knowings and those things, and they're like, well, what if I'm wrong, or it's just in my head, or they kind of second guess themselves. But I think uh, you know, learning to trust yourself is the most. I think it's the best gift you can give yourself, and so that's I think a big focus again in working with my clients and the work that I want to do as a psychic and a psychic medium is that I don't want to be a psychic that somebody comes to ask like what's going to happen with this thing or what should I do or what tell me the future or tell me the thing to do. Like I want to teach people how to be empowered themselves and how to connect with their own guidance.
mm,
Eventually. And
yeah,
so I think, yeah, and I think we all know more than we give ourselves credit for. Everybody.
right. Yeah. That's beautiful. Trust yourself and trust your purpose, and surrender to your purpose. I guess it goes back to the trust and surrender, but in fact, it's actually trusting and surrendering to yourself.
Yeah. And if you're drawn to something, right? If you
Yeah.
feel a pull towards something, if you should go down that path. Like there's something there for you. If you're being pulled, don't second guess that. If something feels exciting or interesting,
Yeah, that's
give
like,
it a shot.
if you're feeling the excitement, if you're feeling that emotion that's pulling you, follow it, because there's a reason you're feeling that energy. It's real. Go for it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, this is wonderful. So, Alexa, how can people get in contact with you?
They can go to alexadarrin.com. And if you'd like to, book a free call to see how I could help you if possible, you can follow me on Instagram. And those are the main two ways. I think I'm on TikTok too.
Oh,
Not
cool.
sure how much longer, but
Well, you'll be in all these wonderful places, and all that stuff will be in the show notes. So make sure that you connect with Alexa and all her things that she's been offering. So take a look at that. And
oh yeah, that's right. I almost forgot. We're going to have a little freebie for everyone there. So in the show notes, we're going to have a link to a little free 3-day challenge, so to speak, my 3-day soul clarity reset.
Ooh.
So a little 3-day adventure journey for clearing your energy and connecting with your intuition. So check that out.
There you go. Check that out. That'll be in the show notes as well. So make sure that you take a look at the show notes. You see all that good information there, and get some extra goodies as well. So also take a look at anything in the show notes that we can talk about for everything that is out there. So we are so excited that you came on the show. Thank you so much, Alexa. This was a wonderful conversation. I loved having you on here.
Thanks so much. Yeah, this was fun. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you everybody for listening and tuning in today. I hope you had a wonderful connection and you really learned a whole bunch from Alexa. And always remember to like and subscribe to the show, so that way you'll never miss another episode that comes on every Wednesday. So for now, this is Chris signing off and sending you love and light, and we'll chat again on Wednesday. Until next time, bye for now. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Spirits Beside Us. Make sure you head over to the show notes for all the links and information on this week's episode. You can check it out at spiritsbesideus.com. If you love this episode as much as I did, head over to rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're looking for a community of spiritual seekers like yourself, make sure you join my Facebook page, Spirits Beside Us Podcast on Facebook. This is Chris signing off, sending you love and light. I can't wait to connect with you again on Wednesday.